Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are delighted that you're part of our Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Marla Benavides. She'll be here to celebrate and tell us all about homeschooling. Now, as you hear in our conversation, homeschooling is very different than virtual learning, what a lot of kids are doing right now, because in-person learning is not possible in so many different cities all around the country. And there's a lot that we've had to adjust to, and this might be an adjustment that might be the right choice for your family. Speaking of adjustments, for the same reason, because of COVID-19 and all the restrictions that are in place, I am not able to travel around to schools presenting my live in-school assembly program. And it made me so disappointed until I made changes and adapted my program to be something that is amazingly fun for kids to experience through technology. And it's also amazingly fun for me. I love it. And I would love to share a virtual performance of my show. The magic between us is respect and kindness. And during the month of December and November, it can be free. That's right. You and your school, your homeschooling group, your Boy Scout, Girl Scout troop, whatever kind of organization it is, you can schedule a free performance, a free virtual performance of The Magic Between Us is Respect and Kindness in November and December. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on where it says Parents, click here, scroll down to live events. There's even a spot there where you can schedule a performance. That's right. It's that easy, and it doesn't cost anything. Check it out today. The magic between us is respect and kindness. Joining us right now from the beautiful city of Denver in Colorado. We're here on the beginning of September. It is snowing. Crazy, boggles my mind. Please welcome to the show my guest, Marla Benavides. Marla, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
I'm excited to have Marla on. We're going to speak today. Marla's a different kind of guest. She's not an author, but she's very much involved with reading. But I invited Marla on today so we could talk a lot about a subject that she has a lot of expertise in, which is homeschooling. How many kids are you homeschooling, Marla?
I'm only homeschooling one.
Well, that can be a handful. That's
It is a handful.
Now, and one of the reasons I'm excited to have you on is that a lot of families, they find themselves at the start of the 2021 school year with their kids at home with them virtually learning. And I know that homeschooling is different than virtual learning, and I want to talk a little bit about that, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that parents who have been thrust into this position of supporting their kids' virtual learning can learn from a homeschooling parent. So, Marla, just to start with, just talk about what homeschooling is and why you decided to make that choice for your son, for your child.
Okay, so when my son was born, I was a paralegal. And I had no idea that I was going to homeschool. Mm-hmm. But when he was born, I took time out from being a paralegal, and I just started researching what homeschooling was, and whether I wanted him in school or homeschool. And by around 3 years old, I had decided that I wanted to homeschool and in the classics. Mm-hmm. And the reason, I think homeschooling is the best is because your child will be learning one-on-one, and you can see his progress and where he's at and what he needs, better than if you put him in a class full of 30 kids. Mm.
Now, I imagine there might be some folks out there who want to give push back and say, how can you say, someone without that degree in education, how can you design a better educational experience for your kid that teacher with that college training and that school system that have all these educators who've come together and developed a curriculum?
And that's a very good point. We have educators are very trained and they're knowledgeable and they have the expertise to be able to educate. But at the same time, parents are natural educators and they don't need a degree. And parents know their children better than anyone in the whole world. And so what makes it nice is that you already know your child and you know his strengths and his weaknesses and are able to adapt and form and find because there's so much curriculum out there today. You could find the curriculum that matches his strength and better than a teacher would in a class of 30 kids.
So that's, I think, something that a lot of parents who are unfamiliar with homeschooling might be surprised at. We're not talking about you going to the library or going on Google and searching for different books and kind of winging your son's education. There's actually curricula that's been developed for homeschooling parents to use. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm imagining that curriculum has been tested and approved by school boards around the country.
They have been tested, and just like a teacher would find a curriculum for her class that matches her school board, we have communities and co-ops of parents who come together and they help each other determine what curriculum is the best for their kids, and they could chat and discuss just like a teacher can in a school system. Now,
what kind of supervision isn't quite the word, but what kind of checks and balances? Because I'm imagining that there are there might be some parents who decide, well, I don't want to have to deal with the school system, so I'm going to say that I'm homeschooling my kid, but meanwhile there's no real education going on. Is there somebody in your town, in your city, that is kind of making sure that Marla is doing what she says she's doing and getting her son the education that we believe he needs?
Well, there are laws for homeschoolers as well as for teachers in schools. And in my state, we are considered non-public education, which is really private school. And so in third grade, your child, you need to test every other year, starting in third grade. And so you got to test him every other year to make sure that he's up on par with the other kids.
And speaking of testing, how typically, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how do kids who attend homeschool stack up against in standardized testing against kids who are going to typical public schools?
Well, I'm not really sure about that question because I haven't really checked, and some submit the tests and some do not. So when we test, we keep the tests with us in case we're asked. You do not have to submit it anywhere or let it be known whether your kid is smarter than public school kids or not. But I think what stacks up, I think I've researched it a couple of years, and I think that homeschool kids are better off than public school kids, but I can't really vouch for that at the moment. Mm-hmm. I don't have the test scores in front of me.
Now, one of the things that I heard when my kids were in school and my wife and I talked about homeschooling, one of the things you hear is that kids who are homeschooled miss out on all that socialization and interaction, and certainly that's one of the things that parents around the country are really concerned about now that so many kids are learning virtually. What about that? Does your son have opportunities to develop friendships with other kids? Does he have opportunities to socialize?
Yes, he does. We have a community, and we are active in our community, and I put him in sports and different activities, extracurricular activities, so that he makes friends, and we have friendships around the neighborhood, and in church and community. And so he has plenty of opportunity to make friends outside of the home.
Yeah. How does your son like it? Does he like being homeschooled? Does he ever come to you and say, Mom, I want a different teacher next year?
No, he loves homeschooling. He loves the freedom that he has to be able to work and play and not be stuck for 8 hours a day.
I'm wondering, and again, you may not know the answer to this, but like I said at the start of the podcast, there are so many parents around the country who have been thrust into the position of supporting their kids' virtual learning. What do you see? Your son is learning at home full time. He's learning with you. So many kids around the country right now are doing the same thing. They're learning at home, but they're learning in a different way. They're going online, experiencing lessons that their teacher is putting up through Zoom. What other kind of differences do you see between virtual learning and homeschooling?
Okay, so what I see with virtual learning is some of the kids are kind of feel it's awkward, and some of the neighbor kids have mentioned that they sort of don't like it. It's kind of like they're kind of depressed that it's just like virtual. And we had virtual learning in the beginning of COVID, when we were stuck at home and we were locked down. We actually had to be virtually with our community. And while it was nice to see everybody, it was kind of weird because you cannot see and touch your friends face to face. So it is a bit of a weirdness when you're sitting in front of a TV rather than being in community or at school with your teachers and your friends.
Yeah.
But with the homeschooling, my son isn't on screen all the time. We have a curriculum that's traditional. And so, for 6 hours, we'll, on and off, we'll have like little breaks in between. We are doing, regular work, whether it's English or writing or reading or math. We're sitting at a table and we're actually working. And then my son, he has the free time to go and explore the world outside in our backyard, and get into mischief if he wants. You know how boys are. But I do see that being online is sort of, tiring. Than sitting in front with a regular book and learning some material.
It's interesting that you say that your feeling is that it's more tiring, more exhausting sitting in front of a Zoom screen. And, that's, my wife has been a teacher for over 33 years, and she spent the last part of last year, from March until the end of the school year, teaching virtually. And I know she had, in her kids, she's a special needs teacher, but she had a very, very difficult time keeping her kids' attention, because there are so many distractions in the kids' homes. Even though she planned these great lessons and was bringing a lot of energy and her classes were really animated, there were 2 or 3 kids that she was, constantly, okay, focus back here. What do you have in your hand? Put down the toy. just pay attention here. And I guess you're finding it's a little bit easier to keep your son's attention than it would be if he was just watching a screen all day. Yeah, fascinating. You mentioned that kids homeschool. Your son gets a chance to go outside and explore the world. How long are you teaching your kids? Do you have like, oh, we're going to be in class here from 9 to 1, or do you do it in chunks? Do you sit down and go for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then your son has a break and then come back? And how does your school day look?
So yeah, we do them in chunks. So we'll take we'll do a subject, and then we'll take a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll come back and resume and do another bit, and then take a little break, maybe a lunch break this time, and give them an hour to kind of relax, and then we'll come back and we'll do them in little chunks, and maybe do 3 hours in the afternoon or 2 hours in the afternoon, and then that's it.
Now, are there any activities that you do with other homeschooling kids and parents?
We do. We have field trips in the week. Not every week, but once a month. And we also have community, which is kind of weird this year because of COVID.
Right.
But we do, our community looks a little bit different as well. We are more in homeschool pods this year. So we're smaller, and we're meeting in smaller groups just because of COVID.
If there's a parent out there that is considering homeschooling and listening to us and hearing that your son is loving this type of learning, and you're thinking it's the best and it's working for you, if they're interested in learning more about perhaps homeschooling their kids, is there a website that you can point them towards?
I do. And I would say that I would first look into Classical Conversations, and find out what they do. It's a wonderful community, and I do not have the website in front of me. So just Google Classical Conversations, and they have a location. Find the rep for your location. They're nationwide, based out of North Carolina. And every state has a rep, and find the rep and find out what they do, because I believe Classical Conversations is the best out there. I know that not every kid does well with classical learning, but also Seton Home is another very good, and they're based out of Virginia, Front Royal, and they have a really good, strong Catholic curriculum. If you're Catholic, I would highly recommend them. Regina Shaley is a Catholic Classical Conversations, and just locally there are different co-ops of moms who meet and come together and form groups. So I would Google in your area homeschooling co-ops and find out, or maybe even on Facebook. There's plenty of moms homeschooling that have groups on Facebook. But in front of me, I do not have a website. Okay, I'm sorry.
Now, the magic of Google can really help us out, and I think that information that you gave us will get parents on the road. One thing I didn't ask you early on, is there cost involved in obtaining the different curriculum?
Okay, so curriculum can be different for everybody. It could range from $20 to $300 or $600. But in general, it's under $1,000. And each co-op has a small fee. Classical Conversations can be a little bit more pricey, because it's a strong curriculum. And so is Seton can be a little bit more pricey because they have a whole curriculum set up, and you're just a teacher teaching those classes. But it ranges from $20 all the way up to $1,000. And you could supplement with USborne. Like when my son was younger, I couldn't give him a regular curriculum because he wouldn't sit there. So I supplemented with our very own learning wrap-ups for math. And I taught him how to subtract and how to add just by doing the problems in the Learning Wrap-Ups book.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned USborne. I know that you have a USborne home business, and I want everybody to know where they can go to find out more about your particular business. But before we do, I just want to check. What about a child with a special need or learning challenge? Are there ways for is there support for a parent who wants to homeschool to support a child? Say if the child has dyslexia or ADHD or other type of learning challenges, is there support so that kid can get the specific education and support that they need?
Yes, there's plenty of support in each state and each local level community. And when you have a co-op and you have a community, you will notice that there are kids who are special needs in there too, and parents are more willing to support you and help you find the support you need within your state. So that's why communities and co-ops are very important. And I highly recommend that you find a community or a co-op that fits your family style and structure and your needs in your community.
Now, I'm curious, you may not know the answer to this if you haven't had experience, but I know that here in Massachusetts, if a child has a specific need but is attending a private school or a Catholic school, they can still have an IEP developed, and if they need a specialist, say a speech therapist, they'll still be able to get that service either by having the kid go for an hour to the closest public school or having the therapist come and give the support at the Catholic school. Do you know if there's that type of support available for homeschooling parents?
Yes, there is, at least in my state, there is plenty of support for those kind of kids. We ran into it as part of our extracurricular PE activities. Mm-hmm. We ran into a couple kids with special needs who had a therapist or a nanny who was there full time at home educating their kids for the parents. So parents are very willing to take out, a lot of parents here in Colorado take out their kids and find that it's better to have one-on-one help with their kid. Yeah. So Colorado is very strong on special needs help.
Hey, you've shared a lot of great information and insight with us today. I want to give you a chance to share about your USborne business and invite folks to go and check it out and to visit your website.
So I just want to let you know that I am an independent consultant for USborne Books and More. We have over 2,000 books available for your kiddos to look at. I find that more and more kids love our books, and they promote wonder and they inspire kids to read and learn. And I believe that if you want books and you can't afford it, hosting a party is a very great way to get some free books and some discounts and introduce USborne into your community. And if you're interested, my website I have a website, and it's usbornestorytamers.com. You could click on the links that I provide on my website, and it'll take you directly to my e-commerce site. So you could take a look at the books and also connect with me and learn who I am.
Oh, great. And, you mentioned hosting parties in order to earn books. That's kind of difficult right now in the era of COVID. But I'm imagining there might be a way for a parent to host an e-show, kind of an e-party.
Yes, I have the capabilities. We have a platform that's really, really awesome that USborne just connected us to, and it's called Squee, and we have a ton of fun on Squee. It's a lot like your living room without the noise of Facebook. So it's a really, really great platform. So if you're interested, please connect with me you can send me a text at 720-937-4524 and we can chat.
Yeah. And that'll be really, I think, a great thing. If you're at home struggling and you're trying to make ends meet, but you still want to have that family library that's going to increase your child's chances of going to university and succeeding in life, you could host a party and reach out to your family and friends and say, hey, can you check this out? Maybe buy a book for yourself, or maybe buy a gift book for my kid. But as you're doing it, not only will your kids be getting those books, but you also be earning free books too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you call me today, right after this podcast, I will give you $25 extra just for putting the call today and hosting with me.
We've had a great time speaking today to our friend Marla Benavides. Marla, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jed, for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Brianne Lemming. She'll be here to tell us about something really cool called Unruly Splats. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Are you the author of a fantastic children's book? Well, we would love for you to be a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book, and it is absolutely free. It doesn't cost anything. You don't need to pay anybody to facilitate your appearance. You just need to come on and have a lot of fun. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on authors, click here at the top of the page, scroll down to where it says be a guest. That's how easy it is. Right now, it'll be really easy for me to say goodbye, but first I need to say thank you to the people who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Marla Benavides. Also want to thank my team, my daughter, Alejandra Doherty, my producer, Fatima Khan, my author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being part of our show. Thank you so much for being part of our beautiful family. And thank you so very much for helping to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.